to go. Also with us is Steve Negron. Steve Negron is running again for Congress. He's a Republican, and he's running for Congress in the 2nd Congressional District in New Hampshire. And that, Steve, is currently represented by?
Ann Kuster.
Ann Kuster, who was one of the woman in white during
Absolutely.
the impeachment tearing up of the speech. I tell you what, I thought it looked like a clown show. You know, the first time I got it, right, they wanted to do the suffrage thing and maybe honor when women had the right to vote. You know, the second time, they looked like they stepped out of the Soviet Union Politburo there. I mean, the whole thing was a sideshow. They look like clowns. I really don't know how that has anything to do with representing their constituents.
Oh, it doesn't at all. And so, you know, there was many times that she was either on her cell phone looking down while the President of the United States was speaking, or, you know, I think there's a modicum of decorum when you're in the House, the People's House. And I think what we saw at the State of the Union was a shameful act on the part of our representative.
Right. It's just shameful. And, you know, Steve, you won. You're in another primary,
yes,
right?
sir.
You're in another primary. One of your opponents is running again, as I understand it, and and she's going to be with us at the 11:30 hour, and that is, I want to get her name right, Lynn Blankenbecker. She's also with Women for Trump. But she ran against you last time,
yes,
and you defeated her.
I did. So, you know,
she finished third, right?
She did. One of the things that in the 2nd Congressional, what we see is a lot of times the nominee does not come back. So we had a nominee in 2014 that didn't come back in 16. The 16 nominee didn't come back in 18. And we knew that the 2nd Congressional is the kind of district that you got to have persistence. And so we made it a point that the first time around was an investment. So we're really looking forward to this time around.
So it really is a swing district.
It is.
It is a major swing district.
Absolutely.
And so what is the difference? You beat Lynn last time. She finished third, actually. And in that race, a lot of people thought it would be a lot closer than it was, and you really ran away with it. And I'm not showing any disrespect to the other candidates, but I just look at the numbers. You ran away with that.
Well, it's really funny when you look at what our numbers did show, and not that we vote counted, but 117,990 people cast a vote for our campaign last time, and that's the most votes in the general and in the primary.
In the primary?
In the general. So what we did when we took it was a 7-way primary. You know, it was a very spirited primary, and it was a close race. We were outspent 3-1 by the guy who came in second, Dr. Levinson. So it was really about the ground game. It was really about getting our message out, and I think that resonated with the voters, which then extrapolated to how well we did in the general, even though we didn't win.
Well, look, you were going against the wave, right? I mean, you got 42% of the vote. There was, Republicans got beat. There were 38 Democrats that won in Trump districts. Mm-hmm. A lot of them now were vulnerable, and Custer's one of them.
Absolutely. When you look at
in 2016.
Absolutely. One of the things that we're looking at right now is that it's our responsibility to look at everything that Ann Kuster's doing and make sure that we hang it around her neck. She's this term, this 116th Congress, she's voted with Nancy Pelosi 100% of the time. Every single vote she's voted with her. And she doesn't represent the values.
Did she campaign that way, or did she say she was going to be a different kind of a Democrat, work with the president?
Sure. No, not at all. She says she walks across the aisle, but when you look at what her votes are in the House, it's not like that. Look, the truth of the matter is she didn't see us as a threat when we won the primary. She had 4 TV ads, and they were really more about softening her image. Nothing about issues at all. It's a lot different this time. So when we announced, she already immediately came out with 3 fundraiser emails against us, because she now knows that if we could take 42% of the vote in a bad year for Republicans, and oh, by the way, we had no help. The RNC didn't help us, the NRCC. When we went down there and pitched them, they said, look, Steve, we like you, right? You're a veteran, you're a minority, you're a business owner. If you get 10% of the vote, you'd be lucky. We took 42% of the vote, so we know that we have something to build on, so we're looking forward to that.
So if that's a swing district that Trump won in 2016, right?
No, he lost CD2. He won CD1.
He won CD1.
Right.
What did he lose CD2
Not by much.
Not by much.
No.
So he was competitive in CD2.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So why did the RNC abandon your campaign? Oh, not the RNC. Let's be straight. The Republican National Congressional Committee, RNCC. Why did they abandon the 2nd district?
Well, I think they look at what the calculus is, right? So it's a D+2. We like to call it an R-2, but it was a D+2 district. The nominee had no money to speak of, had no name recognition to speak of, and so they said, they cut sling load, as we say in the military, and They just led us to say good luck. I think now the story is, we try to convince the NRCC that an investment in this state, $500,000 in New Hampshire, the ROI on that is a lot different than $500,000 in California,
right,
or Texas, or Pennsylvania,
or Philadelphia,
anywhere, because of the way our state is and our demographics. So, you take that and couple that with that 115,000, John, registered Republicans stayed at home in the midterm. 115,000
in New Hampshire.
In New Hampshire,
that's what your chairman said.
Right, half of those come out, just half. We don't lose the House in New Hampshire. We don't lose the Senate. We keep the Executive Council, and the races in CD1 and CD2 probably could have ended up differently.
Did their vote count go up significantly in 2018 from what it was in 2016?
For the Democrats?
Yes.
They had a good turnout. They really did, and so it really was on par for 16. So we're doing that analysis right now.
So they got their same people out.
They did.
And we didn't get 100,000 of them out.
Not at all.
So if we get the 115,000 out, if you just match 2016, you think it would be higher because of the tremendous success that President Trump has had. So
right.
you think the 115,000 is really the least new votes you're going to get,
right?
Over 2018.
Absolutely, John. When you look at 16, Jimmy Lawrence, a good friend of mine, when he ran, he lost to Custer by 5 points. In a good year, and
right.
we're looking at that like if that can happen again, and you campaign, because that's what you have to do in this state, then we think we have a heck of a chance of unseating Custer and bringing her home because we miss her.
Well, I think it was who was on the air who said we're going to have, was that Fred Doucette?
Yep.
He said we're going to have a big retirement party for Ann Kuster.
Steve Stepanek.
Steve Stepanek said that. He said I'm planning a big retirement party for Ann Kuster and Janine Shaheen. So. He says I'm gonna be there handing out the retirement big pieces of cake or whatever. So let's get first thing. In order to go up against Ann Kuster again, you've got to win the New Hampshire Republican primary, and that'll be in August,
September. So we have such a late primary.
Why is it so far out? I mean, and then you've only got 8 weeks to campaign.
8 weeks, right? I mean, that's the hard part.
So
whoever wins the primary.
Why does this thing go on so long? Why don't you move that up?
Well, that's been talked about when I was in the state legislature. They always talk about it, but they've talked about, is there a inverse relationship with First in the Nation if we move it back? I don't know. All we know is the reality is whoever wins the primary.
Because of the primary, you're afraid
that we don't want to lose the First in the Nation,
But that's your law.
It is our law.
So
it absolutely is our law.
You can't lose it because you just keep moving it up.
It is, and it's, for us when we came out, she had $3.5 million, cash on hand.
And Custer,
and didn't have to campaign at all.
Right.
And
you
that's
had 8 weeks.
8 weeks to do something.
But the thing is, why it's such an advantage for an incumbent, it's almost like the Incumbent Protection Act. Because if you're an incumbent, right, you'd spend it, and you don't have a primary challenge, you spend the whole time raising money, you got $3.5 million, and then the Republicans or yourself get through a bruising primary,
right.
And it's September, you spend all your money, you're exhausted,
right.
And now you got to get up the next day, you got 8 weeks and you're way behind. That's tough.
It is tough. And, but the thing we look back, and just like anything, you do an after action or a hot wash, and, we like what we did. Hot wash is when you have a jet that comes down and all of a sudden they, engines are running and you turn it to go on another mission. It's just
military terminology,
right?
That's
it is one of those things that we said, okay, given all those handicaps that I alluded to earlier, to pull 42%. Was a great showing on our part, right. And it was we had some great college kids that had a ground game. Our ground game was second to none. Even the governor looked at me and goes, "Where'd you get those kids?" And then he started stealing them. He started paying them. But anyway, that's okay. We have the same, as I said in the Blues Brothers, right? We've got the band back together, so we're really excited about this time.
So how do you beat Lynn?
Well, I think we go out and, the people, fundamentally nothing has changed this time. They resonated with our message. We believe we were the only campaign that had a message last time, and we're going to build on our successes from before. We have a lot of great support now throughout the district since we traveled those extra 8 weeks, and that's going to be our starting point.
We're live in New Hampshire in the 603. Great to have everybody with us. Special edition today. We will be on the air until 1 o'clock today, Saturday and Sunday, noon to 3. Live in New Hampshire. We're at A.J. Letizio Enterprises, where we have this beautiful studio.
Oh, it's amazing.
You ever seen anything like
My hat's
this
off
before?
to Al. This is amazing.
Look at the picture they have up of me. Good thing it was airbrushed. John Fredericks Radio Network in the 603. And we're with Steve Negron. Steve ran for Congress as a Republican in the 2nd District in New Hampshire in 2018, losing to Ann Kuster. and he is running again in 2020, hoping to be the nominee so we can go up against her again.
Right.
Sometimes you got to run 2 times to win.
If
you look at history of new
very
politicians,
rarely, absolutely, very rarely do you get to go out and win the first time.
Yeah, it's tough.
And it was, and then we'll take the lessons learned that from last time and apply it going forward, and hopefully it'll be a more significant outcome for us.
Well, I really hope it is. Now let's get to some things here. I'm going to go to a quick word from our sponsors, Al Green back in the studio running the ship for us in Richmond. Al, we're going to go to quick word from our sponsor. When I get back, I'm going to ask Steve Negron what he thinks about Mitt Rat Weasel Romney. I'll be right back. Stay with us. Back on the John Fredericks Radio Network, special edition here in the 603 in New Hampshire. We'll be here for 6 days, all the way up through Wednesday. Thanks for being with us. We're live in New Hampshire. We're at A.J. Letizio Enterprises with Cousin Brucey and Stevie Negron, who's running for Congress again. Also, give us a holler if you want to weigh in, 888-480-JOHN, 888-480-5646, 888-480-5646. You can text us, 757-692-1710. We'll be on to 1 o'clock. We've got some other guests lined up. Lynn Blankenbecker will be with us. She's running against Steve, as it turns out to be. She'll be with us in about a half hour. Pam Bondi, live at the White House on impeachment, senior advisor to the president. She'll be with us at 12:05 right here on the John Fredericks Radio Network. So let's get back to Steve Negron, running for Congress 2020, Republican in District 2 in Virginia. That seat held now by Democrat, liberal Ann Kuster. Let's talk about Mitt Romney, Steve. Only Republican voting to convict Trump on impeachment. Went on this rant in the Senate about how he's doing the right thing. Wants, I guess, curry favor with the New York Times. When he voted that way, I mean, I know you followed this in detail.
Right.
You're a military man. What was your reaction to this whole thing?
Well, first of all, one of the things that I did do, because that's just who I am, I actually went and read the treaty between the United States and the Ukraine, which I think a lot of people just didn't do. They just went off, and that's what I have in front of me, is that this is the actual treaty of the United States and the Ukraine, which I've read page by page, line by line. And if anybody that was in there would have read this document, they would have seen that the President of the United States was well within his purview to do exactly what he did. So lacking the information that these people did not digest, I look at them that I believe that Senator Romney just went by to do what he thought was, in his mind, an ill-informed decision to do and vote for the first article of impeachment. Quite frankly, I was shocked that would have happened. I really thought there would have been some Democratic senators that would have come over, but that wasn't going to happen. It would have been a great surprise. But I'm a bit embarrassed for the people of Utah, for the folks that they voted to put Senator Romney in there. I don't think that it's ever going to hold. I think it's a political suicide. I think is what it is. I think that he hid behind some other beliefs to justify his vote. But in any court of criminal law, which certainly this wasn't, but if you'd have just read the information that was out there, there's only one clear conclusion that you can come out, is that our president did exactly not only what he was allowed to do, but what he should have been doing.
From the get-go, he did nothing wrong.
Nothing.
Right? So then you get Mitt Romney turns around and snakes him in the back. What did you think of that? Look,
there comes a point in time, that we may have some differences with personalities. I used to have a one-star tell me that, we will get through things. The things that will kill us are personality driven. I think he just had an issue with the president before. And the thing that surprised me is that, the president went out to Utah to stump for him. Win the Senate. So to be able to do this, et tu, Brute, is one of those things, and I think it was shameful, and I feel sorry for Mr. Romney, Senator Romney, if that's what he felt he had to do.
Steve, tell us a little bit about your military career.
Sure. So I come from a military family. You've heard me, and I talked about it on the stump. My dad's retired military. I'm retired military. My wife's retired military. Our son currently is on active duty with the Air Force Special Operations Command as a CV-22 crew chief. So I've grown up around patriots my whole life. It's all about giving back. And so what I did when I was when I came into service was at the early 80s, the height of the Cold War. I was a nuclear ICBM missile combat crew commander. So I'm 90 feet under the ground at the height of the Cold War, that at any moment things, would have gone south for us. But I did that. It was the greatest job I've ever had, knowing that my President Reagan at the time knew that he had a force, both not only the land-based, but the sea-launched ballistic missile, the submarine guys, and then the aircraft. It was an amazing time to be in the military, and it's good to see that President Trump is bringing back the military to that stature again.
It's he has certainly done a marvelous job with re-engaging our military, giving them the resources they need to be successful.
Right.
Let's get up. I've got 2.5 minutes. Let's get to some policy issues. The president's position in Syria, drawing down, getting us out of there, making the deal with Erdogan, President Erdogan, of Turkey. Steve, what was your view on that?
Well, one of the things that we on the outside looking in, we don't have access to all the intel information and the information that the president has in his National Security Council and the Joint Chiefs. So, I believe that the president, he's clearly shown this in many other actions that he's taken. He's got the country in the foremost front of his mind. He does write the national security strategy. And if anybody's ever read that, which I have too, there's 4 pillars of it. Is the first one is to maintain that we protect the United States and all citizens here and abroad. So I think what he's doing right now, I think Turkey is a live wire. They'll buy AS-400 surface-to-air missile programs from the Soviets, but yet they want to buy F-35 jets from us. So, it's one of those things, friend today, foe tomorrow. We saw that in Iran in the 70s. So we need to be very careful, but I think the president's doing the right thing and being cautiously optimistic in the Middle East.
Did you have a chance to look at his Middle East peace plan at all?
Not in any great depth. I'm a huge supporter of Israel, and I think that Netanyahu is a great ally for us, especially in the Middle East. So I think anything that we can do to bolster our relationship with Israel, and that's a very tenuous situation, but I think if that's something that both Netanyahu and President Trump believe is a good thing, then I'm behind it.
Venezuela, the president blasting Maduro in his State of the Union speech, and he had the president in waiting,
right?
Which is a little odd because he did run on a platform of not getting involved in regime change, and that's exactly what they're doing now. Did you think that was a little over the top?
Well, it surprised me that he had another visiting president or a president in waiting out there. But when you look at what's happening in Venezuela, I think it was an opportunity to show what happens when you take a country that 30 years ago was probably the most prominent South American country that was out there, and then you allow the socialism aspect to come into and just destroy a country like Venezuela is. I think it was kind of like a shot across the bow to some people to say, you know what, this is what you're going to look. You have a young man here who some people believe is the duly elected president of Venezuela. But look at that country where it is because they went down some of the path that some of you sitting in this audience want us to go down.
What do you think of John Bolton?
I don't know. I've seen different sides of John Bolton when he was a Fox News contributor, and then he was over there. Look, everybody wants to write a book. I could write a book. And we went through the Office of Secretary of Defense. They kind of held it back because there were some things he had in there that was classified. And so there's a process by which you have to vet a book or any kind of publication before it gets put out. So, I don't want to call Secretary Bolton or Ambassador Bolton an opportunistic, but it just seemed that this book comes out at a time right now that would have given some credence to it, given what was happening in Washington in the impeachment trial.
Neocon, warmonger, Dr. Strangelove, never met a bomb he didn't like, another rat weasel, but I blame for this one, I blame President Trump because he never should have hired him. And there was a bunch of his advisors, those that know him, said he would be a horrible hire. He didn't believe in any of his policies. The president went ahead and hired him anyway. So, look, you bring snakes into the house, you try to make them a pet snake, guess what happens? They bite you, right? And then when you say, why'd you bite me? They're like, dude, I'm a snake. That's what I do. I bite people. And that's what he did, coupled with the fact that John Bolton doesn't believe in any of the president's policies. He is a neocon, warmonger, unabashed and unrepented, and he's called every foreign policy thing wrong in the last 5 decades. How this guy is even on TV is beyond me. But that's just me, Steve. I am a non-interventionist. I want to get out of these wars, not be dropping bombs on Caracas. John Fredericks Radio Network. Steve Negron. Hey, people want more info. Where do they go?
Sure. So we're about to publish our new website. It's at Negron, 4congress.com. Go there. You'll see some issues out there and positions that we have, and there'll always be a donate link. So
donate link.
You got to love it.
Got to give Negron some money. this guy's got a shot. He's a hard worker, and we got to get that Ann Kuster out of there. I mean, come on.
Oh, yeah, she did. She endorsed Buttigieg, who, if you go to his platform, he's one of the guys that wants to get rid of the Electoral College. So I don't know how a representative from this state can support somebody that would render us, meaningless in a presidential race. So we'll see.
All right. Well, Mayor Pete surging just got a poll today out a few minutes ago from the Boston Globe. He's now tied Bernie Sanders. He come from nowhere. Could win New Hampshire. He's going to be tough. If he wins New Hampshire, it's going to be him or Bloomberg. John Fredericks Radio Network coming up. Stay with us.